English Easy Podcast.
Hello, learners. Welcome back to English Easy Podcast, your partner to learning English. And you know that feeling when you're typing a text message, like you type out a perfectly good full sentence, but then you just stare at it.
Oh, yeah. You delete a word, you type it again, maybe swap out an adjective.
Right. And then you read it over, delete the entire thing, and just shove your phone in your pocket and send absolutely nothing.
We have all been there. I mean, it's the classic overthinking loop, right? It's
Yeah.
exhausting.
It really is.
And the worst part is you spend all that mental energy and you end up with zero actual communication. You literally worked hard just to stay completely silent.
Exactly. So I want you, the listener, to imagine how much harder that cycle is when you're trying to communicate in a second language, like
Wow.
in real time, face-to-face with someone.
Oh, it's terrifying for a lot of people.
It is. So today on the Deep Dive, we are looking at some fascinating research, specifically for our intermediate English learners. But honestly, this applies to mastering any new skill. We're on a mission today to figure out how to bypass that fear of speaking, stop overthinking, and actually use the words you already have locked in your head.
It's such an essential mission, too, because, well, when you look at the data, the core issue for most intermediate learners isn't actually a lack of vocabulary.
Wait, really? It's not about needing more words?
Not at all. I mean, it's not that they don't know the grammar rules either. The problem is almost entirely a psychological barrier. Your brain is just, too busy overthinking, which leaves your mouth completely on mute.
The language is in there. It's just trapped behind this massive wall of mental noise.
Exactly.
So let's unpack this noisy brain concept, because there are some really relatable examples of what happens during these moments of panic. Like imagine you're standing in a bakery in a foreign country.
Okay, setting the scene.
Right. You've been waiting in line for like 5 minutes, and you've rehearsed this simple sentence perfectly in your head. Hi, can I have that chocolate cake, please?
Which is a perfectly constructed simple sentence. You have the vocabulary, you understand the grammar, you are ready.
You are so ready. But then it's your turn. You step up to the counter, the baker looks at you, and they say something really fast. Maybe they're just asking, if it's for here or to go.
Right.
And suddenly your brain completely shuts down. It's like your internal Wi-Fi just drops.
That is the best way to describe it.
1 second, you have full bars, and the next, nothing. And you just end up pointing like a lost tourist, stammering, hi, I cake this, please.
Which, I mean, to be fair, still gets you the cake.
True, you still get the cake.
Yeah. But internally, you feel this massive wave of embarrassment. And what's fascinating is the biology of what's actually happening to you there. It's not a memory failure. It's a literal systemic shutdown.
Really, like a biological shutdown.
Yeah. When that baker speaks quickly, your amygdala, which is the primitive part of your brain that detects threats, it perceives that fast, unpredictable speech as a literal physical danger.
Oh, wow. So just someone talking fast triggers a biological threat response.
Absolutely, because you're vulnerable in that moment. So your brain floods your system with cortisol, the stress hormone. And here's the crazy part. Cortisol literally blocks your prefrontal cortex. That's the part of your brain that remembers things.
So the word for chocolate hasn't disappeared.
No, the bridge to access it has just been blocked by stress. It's a traffic jam in your brain. You're trying to process the fast speech, manage your anxiety, and remember your sentence all at once. The system just crashes.
That makes so much sense. I didn't forget the word. My brain just put up a roadblock because it thinks a pastry chef is attacking me.
Precisely.
Hearing you explain that biology, it reminds me of stage fright. Like an actor knows all their lines, but the second they step out and that bright spotlight hits them, the shock triggers that cortisol dump and they forget everything.
That's a highly accurate way to visualize it. The knowledge is there, access is just denied.
So why does that spotlight feel so blinding to us? Like, why do our brains have this massive stress response just from ordering cake or, I don't know, trying to talk to a stranger?
Well, to understand that, we have to look backward. For a lot of learners, this fear actually comes from past trauma, specifically the ghosts of classrooms past.
The ghosts of classrooms past, that's a bit haunting, but it sounds right.
It's very real. Think back to when you were first learning, maybe as a kid, you were in this highly evaluative environment. Maybe you had a strict teacher who corrected a tiny mistake in a really cold voice in front of everyone.
Oh man, yeah. Or a classmate laughing when you mispronounced a word.
Exactly. And that creates a physical memory. Your brain acts as that strict teacher now. So every time you try to speak, an internal alarm goes off. Beep, beep. Danger, don't talk, you'll be laughed at.
It's trying to protect you.
Right. It's proactively trying to keep you from being embarrassed again. And this usually shows up as perfectionism.
Ah, perfectionism. We always think of that as a good thing, right? Like having high standards.
We do, but psychologically, in language learning, it's a defense mechanism. Your brain tricks you into thinking that if you aren't perfectly flawless, you shouldn't speak at all, because imperfect means dangerous.
There's this brilliant analogy for perfectionism from the research. It's like waiting for the perfect bus. Imagine you're at a bus stop in the rain. A bus pulls up, but you look at it and go, the seats look uncomfortable. I'll wait.
Right, you'll find a flaw.
Yeah. Then another bus comes. Too crowded, I'll wait.
Right.
You reject every single bus because it isn't flawless, and eventually you're just standing alone in the dark.
It's a great metaphor, because in conversation, that looks like being at a party. You have a funny thought, but you start polishing the sentence in your head. You fix the verb, you check the pronunciation, and while you're waiting for that perfect sentence, the conversation just moves on without you.
You miss the connection entirely. Okay, but let me play devil's advocate here for a second. If our brains are literally hardwired to protect us with this alarm system, how do we possibly bypass it in a spontaneous conversation? I can't exactly unpack my childhood trauma while standing in line at the bank.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
And you don't need to. The good news is you don't have to turn the alarm off completely. You just need a toolkit to short-circuit the overthinking in the moment.
Okay, a toolkit. I love actionable advice.
Exactly. You need practical ways to lower the pressure so you can speak despite the anxiety. So let's get into the toolkit. Tool number 1 is short, simple sentences. Basically, stop trying to talk like a university essay.
Which is hard for intermediate learners because you're an adult, you have complex thoughts.
Right, but when you're nervous, complexity is your worst enemy. Instead of drafting this masterpiece like, I have always been deeply interested in improving my skills, just say, I want to speak better.
Same message, way less grammatical pressure.
Yeah, exactly. But you still have to process what the other person is saying. Right. That's where tool number 2 comes in. Reaction words.
Reaction words. I love these.
They're lifesavers. They're small signals that show you're listening, like, oh, really? No way, or that's difficult.
Right. It's like, okay, let's say we're at a conference, and I say, man, my flight was a total nightmare, delayed 4 hours.
Oh, really? That sounds so frustrating. Where did you fly in from?
Look at what you just did. First, a reaction word. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Then a small opinion. That sounds frustrating. And then a simple question. Where did you fly from?
It takes all the pressure off me to invent a long story and puts the ball back in your court, while my mouth is on autopilot saying, oh, really? My brain has 3 seconds to clear out the panic and process what you said.
It's like throwing a quick jab in boxing.
Hmm?
You know,
Oh.
boxers don't throw massive knockout punches every second. They throw quick, low-energy jabs to keep engaged and buy a split second to set up the next move.
That is a perfect analogy. Reaction words are your conversational jab, and that brings us to tool number 3. Ready phrases. These are maybe 10 automatic memorized sentences you can just hit play on.
Like, sorry, could you repeat that? Or let me think for a second. You just memorize them like a song?
Exactly. So the ultimate rule here is simple and spoken is better than perfect and silent.
Simple and spoken is better than perfect and silent.
I love that.
All right.
Actually, before we move on, I want to take a quick second. We have a special section today to practice the pronunciation of some of these new concepts we're talking about.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, because we want you, the listener, to feel confident saying them. Let's start with that word, spontaneous, meaning happening naturally without planning.
Right. Spontaneous.
Yeah.
Listeners, try saying it out loud with us right now. Spontaneous.
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 Great. And let's do one more. We've been talking about the brain, so let's practice cognitive. Cognitive.
Cognitive. Cognitive. Awesome. Okay, so we've got these tools, but actually trying them out in the real world is scary. Let's do a dialogue simulation session right now.
Let's do it.
This is a great way to practice spontaneous responses in public situations. And let's make it a little tricky. I know our learners sometimes struggle with difficult financial vocabulary, like when you go to the bank. So I'll be the bank teller and you be the learner trying out our new tools.
Okay, I'm ready. I'll use simple sentences and reaction words.
Perfect. Here we go. Hi there. Thanks for coming in. Just looking at your account here, and it seems you have a significant overdraft deficit this month.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Could you explain overdraft simply, please?
Break character for a second.
Oh.
That's perfect.
Thanks. See what I did? I used a reaction word, oh, really? And then a ready phrase. Could you explain simply, please? I didn't freeze just because you used a scary financial word like overdraft or deficit.
Right. And for everyone listening, an overdraft just means you spent a bit more money than you actually had in the bank. So you owe the bank money. But you didn't need to know the definition to keep the conversation going.
Exactly. I managed the panic by using my tools.
Okay, so that was a simulation.
Yeah.
But how do our listeners actually practice this in real life safely? Because my instinct is to just go talk to strangers, but that always ends in panic.
Right. You wouldn't test drive a car by merging onto a busy highway. You'd go to an empty parking lot. So you need a low-pressure environment, a safe mode.
What does safe mode look like for language learning?
It's any situation with zero stakes. No tests, no strangers judging you. One of the best methods is just narrating your day out loud to yourself.
Like talking to myself in the kitchen.
Exactly. You say, now I am cutting the vegetables. The knife is sharp. I know it sounds silly.
It does sound a little silly, yeah.
But physically, it builds muscle memory. Your tongue and jaw get used to making these sounds without your danger alarm going off. You're teaching your body that speaking English isn't dangerous.
We also saw a tip about practicing in front of a mirror. Because the mirror never laughs at your accent. You have to dance alone in your room before you go to the party.
Exactly. Or send voice notes to a safe friend who won't correct your grammar.
Okay, but let me ask a really important question here, especially for learners who are really afraid of making mistakes. What if my worst critic is myself? Like, I'm alone in the kitchen, I use the wrong verb, and I still feel terrible about it. How do you escape your own judgment?
That is the most crucial piece of the puzzle. Because if your inner voice is saying, my English is terrible, I'm stupid, you will always be too scared to speak.
Yeah, the story you tell yourself becomes your reality.
Right. So we need to reframe that inner voice. When you catch yourself thinking, my English is terrible, you deliberately change it to, my English is under construction.
Under construction?
Yeah. Think about a building under construction. It's messy, there's scaffolding, it's loud. But nobody walks past it and says, what a terrible failed building.
Right, they say, oh, they're building something. It takes time.
Exactly. It removes the shames. It acknowledges that the mess is temporary and you are actively building something better.
That is so motivating. It means progress doesn't equal perfection. Progress just means moving forward, one small step at a time. Saying one imperfect sentence today is massive progress.
Absolutely.
So let's recap our journey today. We identified the problem. Stress causes a literal traffic jam in the brain, putting us on mute. We saw how past trauma builds a wall of perfectionism around us.
And we learned the small steps to break that wall. Short sentences, reaction words, ready phrases, practicing in safe mode.
And most importantly, adopting that under construction mindset. Listeners, the fact that you are here listening to this is a huge step forward. You are doing the hard work.
You really are.
So here's a practical tip, a challenge for you today. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Choose a totally normal moment today and say just one real sentence out loud. Even if it's just to your mirror, break the silence.
And I'll leave you with one final provocative thought to ponder. If perfectionism is really just a shield we use to protect ourselves from other people's judgment, well, what happens when we realize that everyone else in the room is too busy worrying about their own perfect sentence to even notice your mistakes?
So true. Keep building, keep practicing, and we'll catch you next time.